Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this week's look at the way the Brexit media is spinning things, we're back to Old Faithful, the Daily Express. Only, they seem to have completely lost the plot this time. They're reporting on a Jacob Rees-Mogg plan to just accept everyone else's rules, including the EU, and are somehow spinning that as dropping EU rules. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. Right, well, with Jacob Rees-Mogg yesterday announcing that implementing Brexit would be an act of national self-harm in his reasoning for not applying any more import controls this year, it put me in mind of an Express article I was reading earlier in the week, which championed his own unique brand of stupidity. But as insane as this article is, it's also illuminating, because the whole premise of this article is a nonsense, which I'll go through. Yet the fact that a mainstream paper thinks it will do the trick speaks of the complete lack of thought that many members of the public apply to trade. The article has the following headline: Brexit masterstroke. Oh, it's going to be good. UK on brink of trade revolution as unreasonable EU rules decimated. So let's consider what that all means, bit by bit, before getting to the article. Unreasonable EU rules decimated. So, what EU rules? Are the EU dropping a load of their rules? No, of course not. And if they did, that would be up to them, not us. So who is dropping a load of EU rules? Us? Can't be us. We don't have any EU rules. We left the EU over 2 years ago. We left the single market and the customs union over 1 year ago. There are no more EU rules in Britain. There are in Northern Ireland, but that's a separate and increasingly worrying issue. But in Britain, we only have British rules now. We always did, in fact, but there's no quibbling over it anymore. There's no more semantics. There are 0 EU rules at play in Britain right now. So who is decimating EU rules then? Nobody. The whole premise is a nonsense, but it's intended to get their reader excited about a new policy, a trade revolution, no less. And what is this cunning new way of doing trade? The subheading says, we can lead the world. Oh, it's nice when we can lead the world, isn't it? In scrapping non-tariff barriers to trade with the EU. So let's ignore for now that the government are still claiming that we don't actually have any non-tariff barriers. We do, obviously. Even the Express can't be asked arguing that we don't. But they do reckon we can get rid of them. So what are non-tariff barriers? Well, paperwork and checks, essentially. We can consider customs controls and standards controls as the two big non-tariff barriers to trade that are wrecking us right now. So we can apparently get rid of these. Now, trade, of course, works in two directions. You have exports and you have imports. Can we get rid of these non-tariff trade barriers with EU for exports? No, not up to us. So there will still be full paperwork, full checks required of all our exports, heading into the EU. I mean, we do have the option of scrapping these trade barriers. We do. There is a way to do it. If we want to get rid of the customs controls, all we have to do is join a customs union with the EU. If we want to get rid of the standards controls, we join their single market. If we want to get rid of both, we do both. It's really that simple. That's the way we can actually do it. But obviously neither the Express nor Jacob Rees-Mogg are arguing for that. So they can't be talking about non-tariff barriers on exports. And indeed, you read the article, no such claim is being made. They are referring to goods passing from the EU into Britain. So what this article is saying is that we should just drop all customs and standards controls on imports from the EU. And there is a proposal in government to do this. Doesn't mean it will be taken seriously. This is Jacob Rees-Mogg after all. But there is a proposal. Now here's the thing. This is billed as not doing things the EU way. The EU don't care. This isn't the EU's way. In fact, the EU would welcome this move. It means that their businesses can export to Britain without any paperwork. No certificates, no other costly or time-consuming barriers to trade needed at all. Any member of the EU Commission, EU Parliament or EU Council who reads this article would piss themselves laughing. And for two reasons. First of all, if the UK applies no trade barriers to EU imports, it means that their businesses suffer no ill effects from Brexit at all. EU businesses get away with it scot-free. In fact, there are bonuses Because when we were in the single market, we could only import goods that met EU standards. Now, in theory, they could produce lower quality products to sell to us. Second, has a huge consequence for the upcoming battle that Boris Johnson is reported to be wanting over the Northern Ireland Protocol. Now, I've talked recently about the plans to let Minister tear up parts of the protocol unilaterally, and this is inevitably going to be a big story at some point next month. This is causing some concern. And not just in the EU or United States either. The UK Treasury is reported to be worried, because if this legislation is passed, and more importantly used, it would risk a trade war with the EU. If we adopt the proposals in this Express article, the EU are more likely to escalate such a trade war. Because the main constraining force in any trade war is the worry that you knacker your own export market to the point where it's not worth it. But if the UK applies no import controls on EU exports, there is zero risk of this for the EU. It's like, oh, we don't want to ramp up the trade war with Britain too much. They might strangle our exports to them. It's like, no, they've got no import controls. We can just send what we like all the time. They'll be able to strangle British imports into the single market without ever risking their own exports into our market. Absolutely insane. And that's only one aspect of the madness, because let's say the government keep barking and not biting over the Northern Ireland Protocol issues. Let us just say it's a lot of talk and nothing ultimately happens. Does that make this policy fine then? No, on no level does it make sense. So let's look at the next way in which this policy is self-defeating. Jacob Rees-Mogg called it self-harm, didn't he? World Trade Organization rules stipulate that you cannot give one market preferential access to your own without a formal agreement, unless you do likewise for everyone else. So if we unilaterally had no import controls for EU goods, and we're not very far from that, by law, we have to have none for anyone else, like India, China, America, everyone. Now, yes, someone would have to enforce this law, and nobody has done so yet, because we've been breaking this law ever since the start of last year. But eventually, you would think someone like China or the US would start putting pressure on the World Trade Organization. So that means we have to have no import controls for anyone. How do we get trade deals then? What can we offer the other side? What do you offer in trade negotiations? You know, you offer increased access to your own market in return for increased access to theirs. That's what it is. That's all it is. It's just talking about how much access you want into the other side's market and how much you're willing to concede into your own. That's all a trade negotiation is. But we are talking about giving it away for free. And also consider other consequences of doing this. If you abandon all customs controls, you lose out on money, because although in theory tariffs could be payable, there's no way of collecting them if there's no paperwork and no checks. The UK Treasury already lost out on tens of billions of pounds due to the lack of customs controls last year. In fact, this Conservative government, with all its policies, is pissing money away. Tens of billions wasted on test and trace that didn't work, didn't even help. Billions on COVID fraud. Billions on the VIP lane wasted. You know, absolutely tens of billions on a lack of import controls last year. We're still losing billions now because although the paperwork is required, there's not many checks going on. We're not carrying out the proper checks to make sure that the paperwork on the box matches what's inside the box. This policy means permanently missing out on tens of billions of pounds a year on import duties alone. How is that something to cheer about? And also bear in mind, all these tens of billions of pounds lost. If we had those tens of billions of pounds, we wouldn't have a cost of living crisis, because the government, they probably wouldn't, because they just give it to their mates. But they could use that money to wipe out the cost of living rises. And in terms of Brexit masterstroke, it does us no good at all, and the EU no harm at all, this either. That's the important thing. It hurts us. It doesn't hurt the EU. Jacob Rees-Mogg says we can't apply any more import controls this year because that would be an act of national self-harm. Yes, it would. But also not applying them is an act of national self-harm. Brexit, however you do it, is an act of national self-harm. And that's just customs controls. What about standards controls? Well, as I've also discussed recently, that means not checking for unsafe freight coming into the country. A big worry is disease. Vets have been going loopy again. You let a load of diseased animals into the country, whatever it is, foot and mouth, African swine fever, whatever it is, and you find out too late, the problem will explode. As I say, vets and farmers are really worried about this, really worried about it. Now, it's a luck thing. It's a bit like, smoking 10 a day, you may or may not get lung cancer, but you're giving yourself the chance. We might get away with this for years, but we might not. We might get hit with this now. If we're unlucky, we could get hit with a massive blow to British farming at the same time as they're already struggling. We've got food shortages in Europe. That means we'll struggle more to get imports of food from the EU because they'll need to look after their own. It's all right, Boris Johnson talking about global pressures on food. Yeah, there are, especially with the Ukraine war. What does that mean? The single market will prioritise itself. We will struggle. So it'll be made much worse for us due to a trade war as well that Boris Johnson is threatening to start with the EU. I mean, sure, that might be a really good way to get the public to want to reverse Brexit with all haste, but it will cause a hell of a lot of damage in the meantime. And all you have to do is read this article, realise that they're talking about EU goods coming into Britain, and not our goods leaving, and it's a clear nonsense. Leading the world, a trade revolution, that all implies that others will follow our lead. They'll go, oh, that's worked out brilliantly for them, we'll follow their lead. Of course they won't. It's insane. It's like going out one day and giving a passerby in the street all your money, and then assuming that when you go out the next day, another passerby will give you all theirs. Don't be ridiculous. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And until next time, I'll see you later.